Welcome to Nameless Debate Radio, where radioactivity is contagious. You can join us in broadening our minds on the Nameless Debates Discord via the link below, and even feature here yourself, if you've got what it takes.
Yeah, so Atterite meet Trump's mustache. Trump's mustache meet Atterite the anti-fascist.
Hello, anti-fascist.
Hello, Mr. Mustache.
And so both you came into this conversation super paranoid, which I thought was hilarious because both of you are coming to it with good intentions. So there's no reason to be worried. But the only brief things that I had outlined from either side was that Atterite. Sorry, I keep wanting to call you Peter Dad Ass from your old name, but Trump's mustache's only kind of real rule here is no private info, doxing, etc. Don't try to get any information out of them.
I don't even know how to.
Yeah, there we go. Exactly. And Atterite has asked that I be honest about the definition of the term socialism.
I see. Are we talking about socialism as the economic, like Mr. E, or are we talking more broadly?
That's exactly what he wanted me to be honest about.
Yeah, like if we're talking about economic socialism, then just let's define it as economic. Or if we're talking about national socialism, let's just make sure we define it, because I can get confused about that sometimes just because of my preconceived notions on it. But yeah.
Okay, so what has been taught to me that socialism is basically the workers own the means of production and therefore get a good nice slice of what they produce. So for example, if a shoe factory has 20 employees, they all get an equal share of the profit based on the work they put in.
Yeah.
All right.
So yeah. I would agree to that definition as well. With one caveat is that under those circumstances, the workers would be considered the ruling party. The workers would be the government.
How? Okay, then this is already a question. How does owning a factory also make you own the state?
Yeah, but socialism isn't just about return. It's about the government using power to enforce the return of the capital to the workers.
So it's not a direct confiscation of wealth. So let's say, for example, the shoe factory again. The shoe factory sells some amount of shoes, and that money would go to the state, and then the state would be responsible for an equal distribution to the people.
Even if it doesn't go through the state would be responsible for pointing at the guns of the factory owner to say, hey, make sure that your workers get the fair amount.
I see. So authoritarian socialism.
Well, it's an inherent part of socialism, because if the factory owners don't want to give up their wealth, then what are you going to do, right? You gotta grab the guns.
Fair enough, but the reason why I made this specification is because I heard some anarchists wanting to have like factories where they would work and they would just share the profit without the state doing that.
Yeah, That's pretty much the sort of, how should I say, this principle behind anarcho-socialism.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah,
that's why I want to specify.
It's just me. Yeah, it's just me. It's funny because as the liberal here, I'm probably the one who makes the biggest problem with it. But I would just split the difference in the sense of that. Yeah. In that sense, those workers are a government. Like they are a ruling party, in my opinion.
Yeah. Although, are we going to be bringing up economic socialism at all in this debate, or is it going to be strictly national?
No, we're probably not going to go deep into that, but it will come up. But it won't come up as like a contentious issue. And on top of that, I just want to say, not framed as a debate. It's more of like, debate's going to happen, but to be honest with you, it'll probably be you guys debating more with me about certain things, but I just want to actually have conversation. The whole genesis to this was Atterite, me and you were having a conversation, and I took issue with your who you label as what is considered alt-right or classical traditionalist, modern traditionalist in the sense of the movement.
I was also going to talk with you about that, and I was going to classify, like, because I was misusing the term a little bit myself, and I will admit that, but I was wanting to clarify that with you.
That's all right. Like we said, you've been studying this stuff for just the last little bit, and I've been studying this stuff for
pretty much over the last 4 months, ever since I got back into politics.
There you go. And Trump's mustache here is on the forefront of these ideas, in my opinion. So I figured he was one of the best people to talk about them. So if we were to kick it off right out the bat, Trump Fuck, would it bother you if
Yeah,
I
just
called
call
you
me
Peter?
Trump. It's easy.
It's either Peter. I want to call you Peter every time.
Okay,
That's
to call me
fucking
Peter.
weird.
Call
But
me
Trump's
whatever you want.
mustache. Would you consider yourself alt-right?
No. I mean, here's the first problem with alt-right. It's a dome organization, a dome term.
Yeah,
So,
umbrella. Yeah.
Umbrella, yeah. It houses monarchists, ethno-nationalists, white supremacists, autistic liberals, NCAPs. You fucking name it, it's in there. It's like it's this nice little term that the media created to group everybody that is not, obeying the mainstream and that is on the right, basically.
If I'm allowed to ask, wasn't the term coined by Richard Spencer, but wasn't it popularized by the media?
No, it was not even coined by Richard Spencer. This common misconception. It was created by the media. Richard Spencer used it.
Oh, hold on. Is that true? I don't even know if that's... I don't disagree with you often, but
I don't think Richard Spencer coined this. I'm fairly certain.
No, so I know you're right. Richard Spencer didn't actually coin the term. The term alternative right was established in the 90s. It was done during the Jared Taylor days, when Jared Taylor was at his I guess forefront before he started rising again there in the late 2010s. But the term was officially used in publication by Richard Spencer when he took it over and made altright.com, right? His website.
Yes, that's what I mean. It's just like he used it. He didn't coin it.
So I wouldn't even say, though, that the distinction that I would make is that the media didn't coin the term. The media reappropriated the term. And this is one of the things I want to get into or try to point out to Adderite, is that the media reappropriated that term to use it as a blanket statement to demonize people who weren't that far on the right. And the reason why I bring that up is the distinction between alt-light and alt-right is kind of important within that community, because the alt-light is not so liked.
Yeah.
So basically, your original question was, do I identify with alt-right?
Yes.
I don't even know what that means.
So
it's like you have to be more specific, like which organization within the dome that is the alt-right.
So you're obviously familiar with the civil war between the alt-right and the alt-light, as it were, right? During the Trump era, there were a lot of people who were attaching themselves to the label alt-right and media using the term alt-right. But once the Richard Spencers and the alt-hypes and the very specific...
Matthew Einbach?
No.
Matthew Einbach
that's Ryan Falk. But shouldn't be doxing people. But anyways, the people from the alt-right perspective, or the alt-right idea, were originally there were three pillars, and this is a conversation that I've heard discussed amongst Mike Enoch, as well as the gentleman and the lady who make the show Murdoch. Well, yeah, man, but they're on the forefront of the ideology. They've helped define it with their influence. And it's this idea that three pillars of the alt-right, as it were. And it's sex realism, or traditional gender roles and their application in society, race realism, and the idea that the races should be separate, or traditional, traditional views on race. And then the JQ, or recognition of the JQ, is the third one, that if you deny any one of these three properties, the alt-right will oust you or claim you as being alt-light, you're cucking to the civic, you're not willing to go far enough into the deep end.
I wouldn't even add a fourth one, which is capitalism. If you're talking about the not the alt-light, but generally the groups that are in the alt-right generally see the faults of capitalism and are not a big fan of those as well. So if you say, if you're going to be advocating for capitalism and saying capitalism is going to fix things, we're going to put you in that nice little civic nationalist basket and telling you to go fuck yourself.
Yeah, well, that's why I'd say that fascists are farther than the alt-right. That's what I would say. Would you agree with that, or?
It's nice to hear. It's nice to hear a liberal say that, but go ahead and disagree, Peter.
By liberal, I mean leftist, but yeah.
No, same thing.
I think we're already vastly. What do you think qualifies as alt-right?
Well, so like I said, I
No.
would
I'm
throw-
not asking you. I'm asking the fascists, anti-fascists.
Same thing as Classless just said. Although I would say that if you don't hold, most likely it's going to be the JQ. But if you don't hold all three of them, I would say that you are Alt-Lite. But yeah, I do think that. But yeah, a lot of alt-writers do. Like, well, not maybe a lot, but some alt-writers do believe in socialist economics. But when people define fascism, they define all things that the alt, at least from my research, all things that the alt-right hold dear, as well as a very big dose of capitalism and a very deep hatred towards Marxist theory of socialism and communism. Would you agree with that, or?
No.
Oh my God, there's a lot of stuff to dissect here.
Get into it.
Oh man, where to begin? Okay, so the main issue is not really economic when it comes to the alt-right. Do you understand that? So
yes,
when you're talking about like socialism and all that kind of stuff, all side points. The main issue, you know what? Maybe it's easier to just explain the standpoint of your average alt-writer rather than to go into the nitty-gritty details just yet.
Yeah. Set it up from your end then. Yeah.
Basically, an alt-writer is 9 out of 10 a central lefty when he starts. He lives in the world as we know it today, and he's been taught all these things via television, via education, via radio, politics, whatever, all these kinds of things. And then he looks at reality, either because he had an event happen in his life, or sometimes he just notices because he recognizes patterns that something isn't right, something doesn't add up, and they're going to find information. That they're going to really be in the mindset of, okay, I don't care anymore what everybody else thinks. I don't care anymore what social dogmas, stigmas that are going to be attached to me. I want to know the truth. So nothing is taboo. And they're going to dive in all these kinds of information, and they're going to find inconsistencies. They're going to find inconsistencies when it comes to politics and the media, and because they find these things, because they say, okay, well, they're lying about this and they're lying about that. What else are they lying about? And they tumble deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper in this. And fuck, hold on, my screen just went in pause mode. Hold on. Yeah, so they're going to tumble deeper and deeper and deeper in this, and eventually the holy grail of taboos comes up, and I think you and I both know what that is.
Yeah,
it's is there a difference between the intellectual capacity between races? Because that's the ultimate thing that you can never say in a liberal society, because it violates one of the most fundamental pillars that it is built on. If you destroy this pillar, you basically destroy liberalism.
Yeah, and I can expound on that. It's the idea that every person is an equally rational agent, which stems from the tabula rasa, or the blank slate theory, and the idea that biology doesn't have an inherent or direct impact on who you are as a person, that who you are as a person is entirely formed or socially constructed by the environment around you.
Yes. Which, I mean, I'm not going to go into debate here whether it is correct or not, because it's just going to be all here all damn night. But essentially, the right wing, I mean, the alt-right, as you call it, the groups are in it, they don't believe that this is correct. And furthermore, they don't think that this is limited to race. They also think that this is not, how do I say this? Men and women are wired differently. I'm not talking about, I mean, I know there's like the spaghetti and the waffle thing, right? But you know what I'm talking about. But
no, elaborate. I don't know what you're talking about.
Oh, come on, dude.
Please.
No, wait, are you actually serious? Or
I'm serious. I've never heard that before. The spaghetti or the waffle? I've never heard that meme. Go on.
Okay, so the meme basically goes that women are wired like spaghetti and men are wired like waffles. Like men think structurally and women connect everything together. So
okay.
it's kind of like that, but it's way more complicated. There's way more science. It's just a meme, so don't dig too much into it. But basically, it's we recognize that there are fundamental differences with even in the way women and men come to conclusions and make rationalizations, everything, right? So when you have the mindset of, okay, well, the races aren't different and the sexes aren't different, aren't the same, excuse me, and the races aren't the same, why should everybody be treated the same? And there's a bigger problem than this, which is, I'll take America for example. You have social justice warriors, as we call them. I mean, I don't know what to call them. I don't even know what group they're really part of. You know the phenomenon, right?
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, okay.
Equality of outcome people.
Equality of outcome people. That's actually good.
Yeah, my mother is one of those people. I don't agree with her. I agree more with equality of opportunity, but I'll preface that by saying that I agree with laws that ensure equality of opportunity. But anyways, go ahead.
Okay, so you have equality of opportunity and equality of outcome. SJWs are actually more interested in equality of outcome. You know what the difference is between the two, I assume?
Yes.
Okay, so when you have, I mean, what you got to understand is that the left is correct on a lot of stuff. The left is correct that there is a disparity between wages when it comes to blacks and whites, that there is a disparity between wages when it comes to males and females. This is all correct. But what they assume to be the cause is not. You see, they assume that it is some malicious attempt at keeping certain people down, like through a government institution or something like that. So they're going to continue on hunting for racism or some sort of system that is treating people unfairly. Now, if you believe in the blank slate theory, this makes total sense, because everybody is the same, everybody has the same capabilities, etc., etc. So therefore, if there is a group of people that is underperforming in society drastically, then the only conclusion to be had is that they're treated unfairly somehow, or they are being oppressed or discriminated against, etc. While in the alt-right, the more groups that are really honest with themselves, they see that this is a biological difference, a difference that can never be fixed. So we'll have a permanent battle of the left trying to find this phantom racism. I mean, actually, this is another thing, because racism is actually inherent in all human beings, but they're going to try and find this phantom offender of the laws, right? That doesn't exist, because the limitations are not there. I mean, the results of their economic disparity is not there because of any wrongdoing, but rather to biological limitations of some sort. Now, that doesn't mean that we think that black people are worth less than whites or something, because you're literally comparing apples to oranges here, because all races have their strengths and weaknesses. But we do have a problem with the left trying to always, how to say this, create a problem where there isn't one. Are you following so far? Because you're being very quiet.
I'm just trying to listen.
Okay. So basically,
almost like a witch hunt concept, right?
Yes. It's essentially, we see the left wingers as the current left wingers, and I do mean SJWs with that. I'm not talking about the economic left wingers, but the social left wingers as what the religious right was 50 years ago. It's basically a religion at this point. It has to be true, or otherwise the Nazi jackboots are gonna pop out of the ground, and the Nazi zombies are gonna conquer the world, right? So it has to be true that there's some racism because otherwise the races are not equal, and that will lead to fascism. That's essentially what the right feels that the left is doing at the moment.
Well, coming from somebody who is like anti-fascism,
Mm-hmm.
like I look at history and like that isn't what causes it. Like that sort of thinking isn't what causes fascism or fascistic ideas. At least that's coming from me.
Okay, but can I just first ask you, what do you think fascism is?
Fascism is an ideology based in traditional values and collectivism on a national socialism level. Things like state-sponsored religion, the traditional gender roles, racial superiority, and fascism itself, rejection of
Racial
Marxist
superiority.
Yes, except for Hirohito, I have not found a fascist country that does not find that their race and or color of skin either is superior to others or makes people better by having that. With the latter being from Spain.
Okay, so basically, okay, this is kind of interesting because we don't actually think that.
Well, yeah, which is why I don't call the alt-right fascists. The ideas within that are, akin to fascism, but like alt-righters are not fascists. That's what a lot of people on my side fail to realize.
Wait, hold on. Sorry, Adderite, I thought because our original conversation stemmed out of the idea of me pointing out that there are right-wingers or alt-right people who are fans of socialist ideology. And then that's kind of what Peter was getting at in terms of if you were to give his definition of fascism on top of yours, because they said so you have your definition of fascism. Trump's mustache, how would you define fascism?
Fascism is an ideology where the people would serve the state, and the state would in turn serve the people to achieve a common goal. This common goal can change depending on which state the fascist is adopting. Fascism. So basically, fascism in Germany would look completely different to fascism in England, and fascism in England would look different from fascism in Spain, etc. So it is very nation dependent. Now, fascists don't actually think all the time. I mean, I'm pretty sure you can find fascists that do think this. I'm not denying this, but in generally, there's no necessity to think that your race is superior. It's more of a love rather than a dislike of others.
Yes, I would agree with that.
So when because the left goes, go ahead.
Oh, but my whole thing with it is there's at least coming from me, there's a difference between a love for your race and using that love for your race and using it to target others. That's where I really feel like nationalism sort of starts to devolve into more fascistic ideals.
Okay. Now, I'm see where this is going with this, right? So let's go for a real life example here. You're obviously going for, let's say, the United States, which has a lot of different ethnicities in it, right?
Yeah.
And you would have certain people saying, well, I want to live among my own people, and I think that I should have a territory for my own. Now, what I assume the left's problem with that is okay, I do not really have a problem with this, but what you're going to do with the people that are living in your territory right now, is that a correct assumption?
That's what I would say. Yeah. Like, how would you
Okay,
in order to
you
create
gotta realize that there are multiple approaches to this, but it also depends on which country you're in. But in terms of the United States and actually Europe, still to a certain degree, is they walked in, they can walk out. The reason why they're there is the problem. You see, fascists also realize that a black guy coming from Africa to Europe isn't there because the problem, I mean, the problem is not the black guy being there. The black guy being there is a symptom. And it's a greater problem that you need to solve, which is your government that is allowing this to happen, which is the government that is giving this person financial incentive to do what he does and arriving in Europe, right? If I lived in a mud hut with a straw roof somewhere in Africa, right? And some European country would tell me, hey, dude, if you come over here, I'll give you €1,000 a month free of charge. You don't have to do a damn thing. And we'll protect you in the media if you do anything bad. Just come over and, have a good time. Who the fuck wouldn't come, honestly? But you've got to understand is that if you remove these financial incentives and actually create an environment where there are genuinely, and not like the left claims, but actually genuinely disadvantaged in white countries, they would leave the same way they would come in, and there would be no bloodshed, no punches thrown, nothing, not even disownment. So there are ways that you can create ethno-states without a single drop of blood.
Okay,
But the problem is that currently we have liberal states in power right now. And liberals are, again, not going to be able to do that because it would violate their principles. So you cannot make policies in the liberal state that would disadvantage one side over the other.
Okay, well, my question to that is, I'm guessing you're referencing welfare, right?
Among other things, yes.
Okay, well, don't you think that getting rid of things like welfare would also hurt the amount of people that are legitimately born in, say, the United States?
No, you misunderstand. I'm not saying get rid of welfare for whites. I'm saying get rid of welfare for the newcomers.
See what I mean about that? That's the socialist horseshoe theory that I like to point out. That's why I brought Peters in specifically, is that he believes in socialist policies, but for a specific in-group. You guys draw your in-group and out-group circles in different places.
Let's say if let's say your people worked really hard and they put $10,000 in the state pot, and this is a security for when something happens to them or their family or their next of kin, their volk, their people, right? They put all that effort in there. They're sacrificed, even though they're going to get a little out of it, but it's out of love for their own volk. And then a liberal government comes along and says, hey, you see this guy from the other side of the planet has never put a single dime in this fucking system? Yeah, he can come over and take out of that pod, no problem. You see what the problem is? If you eliminate that and you sell whoever comes over to say, dude, I'm sorry, but you can go fuck yourself. This is not your country. You haven't worked a single day in your life. These people wouldn't come, and the people that are here, if you take away their welfare and make it much less attractive for them to live here and only serve your own people, and these people would gradually bleed out of your society. I don't mean like bleed doesn't actually bleed, but like bleed out population-wise. And there wouldn't be a single fight or drop of blood had, which is preferably what most ethno-nationalists want, how they want to resolve this. If it doesn't need to be 100%, by the way, ethnic group being in the nation, it's just that the majority, super majority, should be the ethnic group. They should be in charge of their own government, and if there's like 2 or 3% non-whites or something like that, no one cares. The ethno-nationalists are not particularly concerned with a small minority of minorities living in their nation. It's when they start getting power and start deciding what happens to that nation where we get into problems. And this is never going to happen peacefully, because there's a lot of ethno-nats that are actually preparing for civil war, because they see the mainstream media and all the other institutions trying to take away their means to perform politics, which means that after that, there's only one alternative left, which is violence, because you took away all the other political and revolutionary ways, in peaceful revolutionary ways, for them to conduct politics. And whether you like it or not, if you're really honest and if people really want to admit it, which they're going to do sooner or later, a good chunk of your population is ethno-nat if push comes to shove. So what's going to happen when they can never voice their opinions? Well, violence.
Yeah, well, can we backtrack a little bit?
Sure.
Yeah,
Okay.
I've been taking notes this whole time because Peter just covered a lot of ground.
Yeah.
So, we'll take it a step back.
Okay.
Oh,
So,
excuse me. Yeah, you never
No,
interrupted,
it's
which I
all-
agree
it's
with.
all
I mean,
good. We're just trying to let you go,
Well,
man.
just-
It's nice.
yeah.
You're flowing well. You're dropping all kinds of knowledge, so it's good to hear the perspective. So
I see.
well, it's just like my question to you was, how do you know that the majority of people who like you're referencing welfare, but there are other systems, correct?
Other what? Sorry, you cut out there.
You reference welfare, but there are other systems, right? Like other systems out there that encourage immigration in your eyes, right?
Sure.
Okay. How do you know that the majority of the? How do you know that when it comes to these systems, the majority of it is only being used by immigrants? How do you know that the majority of it isn't being used by the native population?
Even if only 5% would use, it would still be an issue.
How so? Because it's still
no, but
benefiting 95%
on
of the
principle.
population.
No, but the
Sorry.
point is Adderite, is that on principle, it doesn't matter, is that it's not that group of people's money. It's Trump Mustache and his group. It's their money. They've made the overwhelming contribution towards it. Why should they even be involved in the same social contract as these people when it's something that they don't want?
Exactly. I don't even remember claiming that the migrants have use the majority. I don't remember ever claiming that.
Well, no, you never claimed it, but the major thing is like taking away programs like, well, yes, they are used for migrants, whether mostly legal. I don't think you can really get welfare if you're illegal, but
yes, you can.
Okay, maybe it's a bit different in the United States than in Canada, or maybe I don't know that much about welfare law in Canada, but yeah. But the major thing is like, even if 5% of that money is, going towards migrants, that doesn't mean that welfare needs to go completely.
No, and I agree.
Because would you abolish it? Would you change the laws to make it so that people who come into your country, like, they have a certain period, or they simply aren't able to get it unless they're natural born citizens, or like how would you change that?
I don't believe birthright for non-ethnic.
Okay, but
okay. Look at it this way: you're a guest if you behave, and if you play nice, and there's not too many of you, you're allowed to stay, but you will never be able to get administrative power. That's probably as in a nutshell as I can make it without going into details.
See, so it's in the point that I would like to point out here, Ada, right, is that it is mainly that he's not talking about a anti-socialist perspective, because he's all for, he doesn't reject any of the socialist policies that would be put forth. He just rejects them for people who aren't members of his in-group.
So this is the common misconception that the extreme right, as the media would call it, is incompatible with the extreme left. Actually, it's complete bullshit. If you don't if you don't advocate for open borders and serve your own group, then you can be as socialist as you want. You won't have opposition from us.
Well, and no, that is completely, that's a completely stupid remark, because you look at things like France, like both the hard right and the hard left were working together against the government. Like, it's obvious that people can come together under the same sort of policies, but really it's the nature of those policies that really sort of coincide with each other, I feel.
Sorry, you said my comment remark was stupid? What?
No, I wasn't saying that, like, that remark was stupid. I was saying that
pointing that out is stupid. Okay, fair enough. Okay.
Yeah, the left and the right, like the hard left and the hard right, can't work together. When they still can work together. Look at modern day France, earlier this, like, just in November with the Yellow Vest movement. But I feel like the main point of contention is the nature of those policies and the end goal of both, I would say.
Well, there's a big fear on the right that the left, in all the controlled altruism, would create a situation where the home ethnic group will be replaced, and there will be no place left to run to for that home ethnic group.
Okay. Well,
and they want to prevent that at all costs.
Okay. Well, like, how do you know that the main ethnic group of the United States is, like, would you say under attack? Like, how would you put it?
Basic math.
Okay. And what's like
demographics?
What's wrong with the demographics changing, may I ask?
Because the ethnic group is being replaced.
Okay. But is it affecting the way that culture is perceived? Is it affecting something negative for the country? Or is it simply just a demographic change?
Yes, definitely. There is no such thing as just a demographic change.
So, Attribution, can I ask you, as somebody who's First Nations, was it not that big of a deal that my people's culture was wiped out and removed from the planet?
No, it was a huge deal. But the difference that I see is that back then we found the settlers who came to America would find that culture was absolutely horrendous, or they would find it as incompatible with their own, or something like that, and so they would slaughter them instead of, nowadays making common ground, which is what we do nowadays, which is making common ground and trying to find a better way of accepting cultures rather than wiping them out. Because
that's. I mean, don't take this the wrong way, but that's extremely naive.
How so?
There's no basis for that. Okay, here's the deal. Do you see Islam modifying their way to accommodate themselves in the West?
Yes, easily.
Yes. Where?
Yeah, I would agree with that. There are plenty of moderate Muslims in the West.
No, there's no such thing as moderate Muslim. There's just a non-Muslim and they're a Muslim.
But I know moderate
Muslims. No, not in the slightest. That's like saying there's nothing. That's like saying there's nothing like.
Yeah.
Let me. 1 sec.
That's
like saying that there's nothing, like there's no such thing as a moderate Christian. There is just a Christian or a non-Christian. That makes about as much sense.
Yes, yeah. I agree with that completely.
Okay, so let me ask you this: are you a Christian? Are you atheist?
I don't see the relevance.
Okay.
I don't see why that's relevant. Why my personal religion is relevant to this conversation.
Well, it's like the main thing is like what is the whole fear behind, more people coming in with it? It's not really even a replacement or a genocide. It's more just a demographic change.
No, it is most definitely a replacement. It's a replacement of the ethnic group. If you have, okay, oh boy, now we're gonna have to get into a lot more.
That's all right. I'm loving this. This is great Friday night.
Okay, so oh boy, now where to start? Okay, do you know what the reproductive strategies are for the different
R-type versus K-type?
Yes.
Yeah, there are different reproductive strategies among all cultures.
Exactly.
There are different reproductive strategies. Like even within Christianity, there's a difference between Christians and Catholics. Like Catholics believe more in huge families, and Christians really don't. At least when we look at statistical data when it comes to childbirths for people who follow either religion.
Okay, that was a lot of explanation, but it doesn't need to be that broad. Okay, so basically it's this. Do you think? I mean, what do you think the reproductive strategy for the average Western person is? R-type or K-type?
Average. Wait. Well, what do you mean by R-type or K-type?
Do they pump out as many babies as possible, or they pump out little baby, a few number of babies, and invest more time into these?
Fewer, but they invest more time, I would say.
Okay.
On average.
What do you think the reproductive strategy of, let's say, the average African person is in Africa?
I wouldn't say it's a strategy, but I would say it's more like they have more kids.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah.
Well, no, and one of the main things when it comes to the whole Africa thing is Africa doesn't have as much a push for birth control or as much a push for sexual education. Would you agree with that, or?
No, because we have tried that multiple times and it didn't take.
Do you have a citation for that, may I ask, or?
Yes, my own aunt who went over there and tried.
Again, do you have a citation?
Sorry, that's not a citation. That's anecdotal evidence.
Yeah.
No, but I have no doubt in my mind. I know this is not valuable to you, but I have no doubt in my mind that this is not going to take, because all of their stories kind of give me a very good picture of what it's like in Africa. They have a culture where this is even looked down upon to use. It's basically creating a situation where you would get ostracized by your own clan if you use contraceptives in some tribes. So,
well,
yeah.
I mean, like you can say the same thing about earlier in life, Christianity. They saw birth
Yes,
control
we're not
being-
talking about the morality. I'm talking about the
Well,
current
that's
situation.
but that you without getting on the whole like blame white people train, that's exactly one of the reasons why it is like that in certain areas in Africa. Is you have a very large push from the Christian communities that are heavily influenced from the Christian colonization of the West, but at the same time, that's not really. Peter's argument is more based around a cultural inheritance in what those people believe and how they act regarding their preferences for their family types and breeding strategy as to why they wouldn't adopt that anyways.
So, okay, in a nutshell, let's just wrap this up because I don't think this to be a big point. If you import these people into West, right? The West is already at a non-replacement birth rate. If you import these people en masse, and I'm not talking about 10 people, I'm not talking about 100 people, I'm talking about thousands, right? Basic math, you come to the conclusion like this is not even like controversial. This is Germany and the United States and all. There are going to be minority white countries in the near future. And if you want to know what whites are going to be, what the future of whites are going to be in a minority situation, all you have to look at is South Africa, Zimbabwe, Rhodesia. You go on and on and on. It looks very bleak.
Well, do you think it's are you just afraid that whites are going to become like a more discriminated upon group if current immigration?
No, not just that, because it would be that solely if it were looking at America, because it's not really our land from the start, from the get-go. So you could have like a moral. Is it moral? I don't know. Fuck it. You can make the moral argument that we're not supposed to be in America, but if you replace us in Europe, that's a whole nother ball game. There's nowhere else for us to run after that. It's either. Do you believe in the definition of genocide by the UN?
What is the definition of genocide by the UN?
Well, you can look it up. It's in Google. It's actually also in. I think genocide is going in there and just killing them, but there are other methods.
What happened in North America to the indigenous people is classified as a genocide, and it wasn't. It was not just the actual use of force, but it was all of the cultural genocide methods, like reservation schools and different things along forcing people to abandon their culture and adopt the white Western culture as a word. So, genocide is defined in Article 2 of the Convention on Prevention and Punishment of Crime of Genocide as any of the following acts committed with the intent to destroy in whole or in part a national, ethnic, racial, or religious group as such, killing members of the group, committing serious bodily harm, etc., etc. So whole in part.
Well, and here's the main problem I have. This is the main contention. It's with the intent to destroy. Are the people moving to America to destroy, white people or Christian culture or American culture, or whatever you like to call it, or are they doing it for other reasons? Maybe they're doing it to become more economically advantageous. Or are they
care about the results? The result is what I care about.
Well, then let's talk about the results. What would happen if a very successful businessman, because he has no way to have economic growth in, say, someplace like Africa, or even let's say Greece, because Greece is an economic hellhole right now. If they move to the United States and they're very economically savvy, don't you think that they would have a good chance of creating a very big boom in the economy, at least in the area in the United States they move to?
That's
Well, if they create more jobs.
No, I'm sorry, dude. This is you're looking at it from a very materialistic standpoint.
Well, yeah, because here's the thing.
Here we go. Critique the liberalism.
Well, are they coming there?
No, I wasn't laughing at you, by the way. I was laughing at
no. I don't. Trust me, I honestly don't care who you're laughing at. But the major thing is, are they going there to the United States with the intent to destroy, or are they going there for other reasons?
Okay, I don't think that they are the most of them. There are some that are, and they even openly said it, but the most of them are not. But I don't care. The end result is exactly the same.
And I would also mirror again with the Europeans showing up to North America. The average European who was coming over, Irish worker or Scottish, farmer, was not coming over to actively kill native people and replace their culture. They were looking for a better life.
Yeah, but the end result is the same.
Well, then what I would say to that is, why don't we put laws in place in the United States in order to prevent that from happening?
Yes, I would agree with you, but you'll never be able to do that.
Yeah, but what kind of laws, guys? Hold on,
Simple.
Maybe I think you guys have a difference.
Simple. Let's promote laws that do not allow for discrimination based on other people. Let's promote laws that do not allow discrimination on senses such as religion or race or sex, because those are the major points that.
Have you been living in the United States for the past 20 years?
I live in Canada. Me and classes both live in Canada.
Sorry. Okay, so I do you really think that this is...
And mind you, Canada has actually had, at least from what I've seen in statistics from StatsCan, we've actually had an increasing amount of immigrants coming to Canada. But the thing with Canada is, we do have laws set out by the Canadian Charter of Human Rights, which protects all ethnic groups and all races, all genders, all sexes, everything like that.
That's not enough.
Let me connect two dots for you here, though. All right. So let me connect a dot here, and Trump's mustache, feel free to disagree. But so if we put in laws, remember what he pointed out at the beginning about things like the racial, I call it the RQ, but race realism, and about gender realism, is that if you place these restrictions for merit on top of the existing population, you're going to automatically screen for white people, for example, or you're going to automatically screen for people from parts of the world that Trump would rather see out of the country.
Yeah,
it's not just that. It's not just that. Let's take his example and see where this leads. Right? Okay, we put in laws that restrict the discrimination based on race, right? Which kind of like happened with South Africa before that shit hits the fan, right? So we have a good system for a second. Then the other ethnicities outbreed the whites because the whites like to have less children but put more effort into them, right? So we still live in the countries where you have federal elections and where federal elections actually matter, where they actually affect you. And the anti-discrimination laws are probably going to be on the federal fucking level, right? So at one point, you're going to be at a position where your own ethnic group will not have power over what will happen to them, because there will be another ethnic group larger that they can democratically, revoke the laws that you put in place, and furthermore put in laws that, I don't know, disown property, sounds familiar somewhere. Remove certain privileges or laws or rights from certain individual, and there wouldn't be a damn thing you could do about it demographically, because you would be an absolute minority in your own country.
Okay, but right now with the United States, we have many, many, many other minorities coming to the United States. Would you agree?
Yes.
Okay,
yes.
So how do you know that exactly one of those minorities is going to become the major majority and it's going to have all these other powers over these other places? And mind you, the reason why a lot of these things happened, like with taking away property and all these other things, is because we didn't have laws and we didn't have historical evidence placing facts and placing blame on other people when it came to, taking away of property, taking away of, some basic rights that we hold today. Right?
What point did you just make? I'm sorry.
First off, it's because there are many other minorities coming to the United States. That means that there is not going to be a majority one. Because if there are many others, that's going to all balance out. Second is the fact
no, I'm sorry, but there's the white majority, and then there's every other basically voting Democrats. And there are numbers to back this up.
Yeah, there are numbers to back this up, but what about the immigrants who vote Republican? You can't say that all immigrants are...
Absolute minority. It's a negligible...
Really?
Yes.
So what about...
Okay, look, okay, this is good. Okay, no, I know this. Let me look at this one.
Yeah, and you can also look at the fact that the majority of white people who would vote Republican, wouldn't those also be oppressing the minorities that would vote Democrat?
Sorry, can you wait for a second? I'm looking at this.
Sure.
Or you know what? I can put glasses on.
I'll just go ahead and chatter. No, I'm not going to argue for you too much because honestly, I don't want to come across as agreeing with you too much. It's bad for my reputation. But
no. Classless. Just look up the percentage of black people that voted for Trump.
Oh, so yeah. American...
or for Bush, or I don't know. Just look, or the Mexicans, or the Asians, or any other minority. Besides Jews, of course.
I believe it was about 8% voted Republican back in 2016. It's going off of a CNN poll.
Okay, 8, so that's nothing.
Yeah, so this is the midterms, not Trump, I'm sorry, but this is even more up to date than Trump. You had the black population of the United States voting 90% for Democrats, and you had the white population voting 54%. Men and women are split pretty much down the middle. Women go a little more Democrat.
I think weren't women like 57% voting for Democrat?
Yes, that's what he said.
Yeah. Okay, sorry. I thought. Well, he said it was more down the middle, but I was just.
So the point is you have 54% of whites voting for Republicans, but in the black population you have 90%. In the Hispanic population you have 69%, and in the Asian population you have 77%. That's voting Democrat.
So overwhelmingly minorities vote Democrats.
Yeah, and I will agree with that. But why are the majority of minorities voting for Democrats?
Because it's beneficial to them.
Yes, but why is it beneficial to them?
Because Democrats pander to minorities.
Or is it because they more want to protect minorities? Like hell, right? Like I'll say this right now, in Canada, like the Conservative Party in Canada is pretty much the Democratic Party. And
when you mean protect, give them more social programs, and yes.
Or to make sure that they have equal rights compared to the white people in America, making it so that you can't.
Still beneficial to them.
Well, yeah, it's beneficial to them, but it's also beneficial to white people. Yes, it's disproportionately beneficial to white people.
How is it beneficial to white people as a group?
Okay, do you think that white people should be denied a job because they are born white?
They are. Just go to Google as a white person and apply for a programming job or an HR job. They already are, dude. You gotta understand.
Bring up the statistics that show that white people are being denied jobs, and it is also in Canada and the United States illegal to discriminate based on race.
Even though it's illegal, the CBC in Canada has put up ads looking for non-white, specifically stating non-white.
Just like the BBC, it's illegal when it's against non-whites.
Well, no, and even then I say that it should be illegal, and that should be persecuted for, because that's still discrimination based.
But that doesn't happen. Don't you get it? There's one thing at what should happen, and there's one thing that happens in reality. There's two different things. Listen. I agree with you that if everything obeys the laws, and if it was a perfect world, everyone would be a liberal.
Okay,
but it isn't.
Harvard currently got into legal trouble because of this year, because they were
Congratulations! You can find one example. Congratulations.
Yeah, because diversity quotas, when people legally challenge them, they do get taken down. Like, it's not just in universities. And if anything, if you ask me, if somebody challenged the CBC on this law saying that it was against the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms, I bet money that they would win. Because you cannot do that. Now, obviously,
okay, let's say that they would win. Okay, fair enough. What was the original point?
Well,
let's say they would win.
Passing laws to make it so you cannot discriminate based on race, and whether or not you as a white person think that
yes,
you should be discriminated based on race.
But once these minorities, now I get where you think that your argument was basically, oh, you whites shouldn't be scared for becoming a minority because there will never be a supermajority ever again. That is an assumption from you.
Oh, no. I'm not saying that they shouldn't be scared, but what I'm saying is maybe they should take reasonable measures in order to make sure that those things don't happen. Yes, it can be a problem.
What measure can you do? What measure? Give me one that you can do.
What do you mean measure?
Well,
you just said you should put in measures, and then you say
the point that I'd say is, like, even as a person who's not concerned with the same things that Trump's mustache is concerned with, any of those measures, like I'm very tight on immigration, but nowadays to come out as being anti-immigration or even use that phrase, it puts you as being considered very far to the right, labeled in the eyes of the media and eyes of the left.
Yes, I don't care what you think, dude. I care about what's happening now. It's all about what is reality at the moment. I don't give a shit about morality. I don't give a shit about any of that stuff. I care about what is cause, what is effect, what is happening now, and what's going to happen in the future.
Yeah, and we can take. And wouldn't you want to take measures in order to prevent that in the future, while not discriminating on people simply because of the way that they are born or from the place that they are born?
Yeah. Okay. I explained this to you. If I put in a law right now, and everybody agrees on it, or the majority agrees on it, oh, this is a great fucking law. Now everybody is protected, right? And we come to the minority, and these other black people or Asian or whatever the fuck says, hey, dude, we're actually the majority now, and we can just totally vote take their shit. So let's first get rid of that law that stated that we can't discriminate, and then let's just take their shit. What's stopping them? What's stopping them? They're the majority. What's stopping them?
Simple, because as I've said, many different in the United States would be considered minority groups are moving to the United States. So again, it balances out.
No, it doesn't. Let's say that the Africans and Hispanics would group up.
And even in the United States, immigration, like the amount of immigration that's actually going to the United States, has been going down and down ever since 9/11.
It doesn't matter because they're outbreeding us. That's what you don't get. Even if you stay a civic net and close the borders, eventually it's inevitable.
Okay, so even if you close the borders. Okay, so like even right now, wouldn't you, like, how are you going to stop all these people who have immigrated to Canada or America already? Who are second generation? What about second generation people?
Right, he brought this up at the beginning with the cutting off of welfare benefits to certain people outside of his outgroup.
Okay, what about second generation immigrants?
They're not our people. They're not our ethnicity, so they would still be subject to that. I don't care
what
about
is the ethnicity? What is the ethnicity then?
European ethnicities, all of them, for United States.
Okay, so only European ethnicities are meant to go to the United States.
Yes.
At least you're consistent. So then what are we supposed to do with the amount of ethnic minorities that are currently in the United States? Second generation immigrants onward, by the way, people who don't have dual citizenship or anything akin to that. What are you supposed to do with them?
You would gradually. Do you want to talk, or do you want me to answer?
No, I accidentally hit my push talk button. Go ahead.
Oh, okay. So
it's okay, guys. It's okay.
No, same as I think I'm consistent. Get the welfare out. Don't treat them as regular citizens. They are here as guests. If they behave, and there is a certain amount of white population reached, then they can stay. Otherwise, you would gradually bleed them out, and you would promote policies only for whites to increase their birth rates until they're the supermajority again. Easy peasy. No bloodshed.
Okay, but again, second generation immigrants
are not citizens.
Really? Because they've been born in the United States. They have United States citizenship
under
the law.
Birthright citizenship. I don't care about that.
Okay, so then you also you also don't care about birthright citizenship for white people in that sense. Because so then what is going to happen to them? Because if they aren't able to move to any other country by like legal definition.
Wait. Birthright citizen. Let me first get a definition because I think I might be getting this wrong. Birthright citizenship is basically when you come over the border and poop out with a baby that becomes a United States citizen.
Okay. Okay, and that's not what I'm talking about. What I'm talking about are people in the United States who have American parents.
Yes.
Who are from other countries. They come into the United
European
States.
countries.
No, not just from Europe. Okay, from any country, period. Who come to the United States, then have a child, not illegally or whatever you want to call it, but they're both legally American citizens. They come to the United States. They have a child. That child is then born. Does that child have as much right to live in the United States as other people?
No.
Why?
Because America was conquered by Europe.
Okay, so even if it's Europeans, let's say it's two black guys from the United Kingdom, if they still come to the United States, if they still
no, dude, you know what I mean? European ethnicity. Go on.
Yeah, but they still
No,
are
so he
of
doesn't.
European
But
ethnicity.
so he's
They're
not
still
speaking
Germans.
about. He's not speaking about nationalism. This is just one of the points that I want to point out because you're talking past each other slightly. Is the definition of nationalism for Peter here, and this is why I brought him here. Sorry, Trump's mustache is that it's ethno-nationalism, right? So, if, for example, Quebec would be one of the best examples I could give you. Is Quebec is specifically an ethnic. Quebecois is a specific ethnic group, specific language and culture, and et cetera, that revolves around this existence of what does it mean to be that. He's talking about that sense of nationalism, like being a Palestinian, for example. They don't really have a country or a nation, but they are a nation of people. Not in the civic national sense of it doesn't matter what your community is, you just have to have that liberal sense of values. And that's why I'm sorry I'm sidetracking this, but I want to pull you guys more into that perspective of liberalism idea rather than getting bogged down in these little details of like, what are you going to do with people if you want to kick them out or whatnot.
Yeah, I gave him the broad straws. Now, he's talking about America, right? I don't particularly care if Americans become the minority in America because to a certain extent they agree to the melting pot. This is not the case for Europe. We were never asked. We were never told. They just did it to us.
Well, so I've heard members of the alt-right in America specifically say that they weren't asked either, and they always constantly refer to this Hart-Celler Act of I can't remember when it was. It's like the early 1900s, and they argue always that it was a specific ethnic group of individuals within Congress and whatnot, and lobbyist groups who push this forward. And this ties to the I'm going to touch on it briefly. The third idea of alt-rightism or the traditional nationalism that you promote forward, and that's the JQ.
I see. Yeah. It's the triple brackets. Yeah. Okay. Okay. So I'm not an expert on the United States because I'm European. So listen.
So
there's a difference. Yeah. Go ahead.
When you say you weren't asked, was it not your governments that made these policies? Was it not your governments that said immigration welcome and allowing people over and providing these welfare systems?
Yes, but what I mean with we weren't asked is the people weren't asked, and it was the liberal governments that did this. This is also a big problem with This is also why we're authoritarian. The big problem with liberal governments is once they made their fake promises, they can do whatever the hell they want for the next 4 years before you can kick them out. And if they already agree with their successor, whoever that might be, that they're just going to continue the policies, it really doesn't matter who you vote in. The policies are going to continue, and there's no way the people are going to be able to revoke them.
What about voting them out mid-office in a vote of no confidence?
Okay, now you're talking about America again.
No, vote of no confidence is in many different countries.
That's in Canada too, but it's not in all countries. It's not in all democratic nations.
Well, no, I said a lot of countries, not all countries. In the United Kingdom, they still have the votes of no confidence. In France, Germany.
Yes. Okay. Let's say that we do, and we actually, despite all
you cut out.
I'm sorry. Let's assume that we can, and it succeeded somehow, right? And he got kicked out. There's another neocon right around the corner, just ready to take his place. It doesn't solve anything. Representative democracies are only effective if all of the participants of said democracy that you're going to vote, every representative is actually interested in serving the people and protecting them. If all of them are more into the globalist thing and bought and paid for it, it doesn't really matter if you can kick one out and vote another one in. You get the exact same result.
Okay, so then what I would ask then is, why don't you go somewhere else where that where that really isn't a problem. Say, for example, Poland.
Because I'm not a little bitch.
Well, no, yeah, hold on. That's a sidetrack. What you're pointing out is basically the establishment of a political class that manages to rule that system regardless. Like there's a reason why the American system, and I'll just use the American one as an example, why they went from, what was it? It was Bush, Clinton, Bush, Obama, and then they almost went Clinton again. And there was even another Bush that ran in that election. There's a reason why there's been several Kennedys. There's a reason why there's Justin Trudeau, or Trudeau 2.0 in Canada right now, is there is an established political class that even though we're doing this perception of switching between parties, we tend to change from a party that just leans a little bit away from what the other party believed in a left-right perspective, but in the same time, they're both pro-liberal, capitalist, corporate, non-loyalty to that ethnic nationality that Trump's mustache holds so dear.
Thank you for listening. Like, share, subscribe, and join us in the Nameless Debates Discord. We hope to see you there.